Hi there, friend, and welcome back to the Quilting with Rulers podcast. I know I haven't posted anything in a while. I had so many tech issues over the past couple months, and I thought I would just try once again to give it a final hurrah and a go. Um, so real quick, I am your host, Melanie Grace. I am a quilting educator. I am a bag sewing educator. I am a coffee enthusiast and your go-to gal for turning your UFOs into finished masterpieces. In today's episode, I wanted to give you a whole new appreciation for the tools that we take, and I know I take for granted every day. And yep, that means that we're going to be talking about the history of rulers, quilting rulers, and how a simple invention completely changed how we quilt. So grab your favorite mug and settle in. Let's take it back, way back, when quilting was mostly done by hand. Every piece had to be carefully traced using cardboard or plastic templates and then cut out with, scissors with your hand, If you ever had to cut dozens of identical hexes or triangles by hand, you know the struggle. Quilters would trace each shape one by one and cut it with scissors and hope their lines were close enough to accurate. It was a labor of love and a test of patience. Precision was more of an art than a science, and let's be honest, wonky was a way of life. But everything changed with one tiny invention. And that's when the rotary cutter rolls in. Enter 1979. The year disco was hot and quilting got cool. That is when Olfa, a Japanese company, released their first ever rotary cutter. It looked like a pizza cutter, but it was for fabric, and it sliced through layers of cotton with mind-blowing accuracy. Quilters were suddenly able to cut fabric faster, straighter, and more consistently than ever before. It was like trading your bicycle for a Ferrari. But with this new power came a problem. How do you guide those perfect cuts? And this is the rise of the acrylic ruler. Not too much later, when the manufacturer stepped in to fill the gap, it was in the 1980s and even more in the 90s. Companies like Creative Grids, Omnigrid, and Quilters Rule began producing rulers specifically for quilting. They used acrylic. It's a sturdy see-through plastic that could handle pressure from a rotary blade without slipping or splintering. Like your traditional wooden rulers, these rulers came with marked grids, angles, and specifically special lines that made cutting triangles, strips, and squares more precise than ever. Can I just say, the grid system? Total game changer. With rotary cutters and rulers working as a team, they truly are the best team in your quilting room. Quilting productivity skyrocketed. Suddenly, cutting was no longer a chore, and it was a creative playground. My favorite is when they brought in the rotating rotary mats, but I digress. Now we're going to fast forward from the 80s and 90s and enter into the early 2000s. This is when quilters had mastered cutting, but they wanted more from their tools. And that's when the concept of quilting with rulers emerged. It started on long arm sewing machines, where quilters began using thick rulers to guide their free motion quilting. It was like drawing inside the lines, now only with thread. And it didn't take long for domestic quilting machines or sewing machines to raise their hand and say, hey, what about us? And that's where I came in. I have a domestic machine and I quilt with rulers. But this is also when the Westalee design in Australia and the Sew Steady company in the US stepped in with an innovation that would change everything. They introduced ruler feet that could attach to your regular home sewing machine, along with thinner rulers designed for domestic use. And so this is where you have those 1/4 inch high free motion feet, and that's what we use. So this is actually where you can actually start to quilt those feathers and those spirals and their borders and more, all from your kitchen table. And there's no long arm required. These ruler feet basically brought ruler work quilting to everyday hobbyists like you and me, and it was magical. Suddenly, precision for these pros, it was for everyone. Why do we care about all the history, and why does this matter today? Well, because When you understand where quilting rulers came from, you realize you're a long part of the tradition of innovation, creativity, and doing more with what you have. These tools aren't just gadgets, they are the key to unlocking your full quilting potential. Are you ready to learn? Do you want to learn how to do ruler work? This brings me to ask you if you're curious about quilting with rulers, or if you've bought a set of rulers and a ruler foot and they just are collecting dust. I want to invite you to join me inside the Quilting with Rulers Academy. This is my online course where I walk you through ruler work, quilting step by step, and it starts with setting up your machine, and then stitching beautiful designs with confidence. It is a skill building course that starts with the basics and graduate you into an intermediate quilter. And then from there, the sky's the limit. Go ahead and visit www.sewmelanie.com/academy. I don't think that's the actual link to enroll today. You can also go to www.quiltingwithrulersacademy.com and finish those quilts with flair. You can also connect with me on Instagram at the Melanie Grace. I'm also on YouTube at the Melanie Grace. I'm also on Facebook at the Melanie Grace. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review if you enjoy this episode, and go ahead and share it with your quilting bestie. I will try to be doing more of these more and more. And until next time, keep those stitches straight, your rotary blades sharp, and your needles fresh. Happy quilting, friends.